One of the things we wanted to clarify at the beginning is there's a little asterisk up here on the slide, is that when we say college and university presenters, we're talking about community colleges, we're talking about small colleges, we're talking about large land-grant public institutions. We want to be all-inclusive in terms of the higher education folks who are represented here. So I just want to begin that as we begin. I'm going to turn it over to Brian now. Brian.
Is this volume okay for folks out there? Great, thank you. So I'm going to ask each of you to, as you're comfortable, and I hope you are, to stand. At very least, put up your hands, but we're going somewhere with this. I'm going to ask you to move around in a minute. So I'd like you to answer this question for us. And I guess if you're an agent or an artist and you don't specifically work in university presenting, connect this to your work with college and university presenting. So how long have you been working in university or college presenting? So if it's less than 3 years, would you stand up, please? All right, welcome. How about, stay standing, please. How about more than 3 years, but less than 7? Would you stand up? Stay up if you're, all right. How about 7 to 15 years? All right. And then those above 15, please. All right. Great. Thank you. I'm going to ask you to move around in just a moment, but I want to opine before we go on about Jerry, about Mike, about Colleen. I want you to know that this is my, yeah. Oh no, this is going to be about 20 minutes. This is mass. Stand up. But 25 is my 25th APAP. 25th APAP. And when I got into this world, these then and still are the big dogs in our industry. And I want you to know that each of them took the time to meet me 25 years ago. They took the time to learn my name, and any time I saw them, they greeted me. And I want to ask of all of you, you saw the people that stood up who were here that less than 3 years. These folks made me know that I was seen and that I had a place in this industry. And I'm going to ask each of you to embrace the other folks here and make sure that they know they have a place in this industry, because it's been such a joyful ride. Yeah. Okay, so this next section, I want to ask you to talk with somebody that you don't know. So no cheating, not talking to somebody you work with. I want you to find somebody that you don't know, and I want you to answer these questions. I want you each to take 90 seconds to answer these questions. Why are you here? And I don't mean metaphysically, why do you exist? I mean, why did you come to this session? Why are you here today? And then, what do you hope to learn? What do you hope to hear during this session? So find somebody you don't know, ask each other those questions, and take 90 seconds each to answer them, please. Tick, 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 tick. Okay, let's wrap it up, folks. Come on back. Here we go, come on back. All right, thank you. We could tell from up here that was a very spirited conversation. So, all right, let's go. Yeah, all right, thank you. Okay, now I'd like you to take 20 more seconds, please, and make a few notes of what you discussed. What are the things that you identified you wanted to learn or hear today, or why you're at this session? Because we're going to have a Q&A later, and in case we don't cover it during the presentation, I want you to be able to ask those questions. So just take a few seconds to make a note. Great. And please, we're welcome back to the podium, Jerry Yoshitomi.
Thank you. Some of us, you maybe heard me speak several years ago as I presented a report called An American Dialogue that was a study of the presenting and touring field and our recommendations for the future. It's my opinion that it's actually time to revisit the depth of responsibility and work that you all do. And this, as the slide says, we believe that university and college performing arts presenters have the most difficult, challenging, and complex role in our field. And so the work that you do every day is much more complex. You have a diverse range of authorizers providing various levels of legitimacy and support. You have a diverse range of objectives and expectations. The communities you serve are urban and rural and small and large. And we also understand our responsibility to engage the next generation of the country's leadership, those who are not necessarily arts majors, but in fact who will be really in decisive community leadership roles in the future. And then you also have the responsibility to engage and retain faculty in a wide range of creative activities. And it's my opinion, and I hope that the session today and our future discussion will be an opportunity for us to reassert our importance, impact, and the value central to the future of performing arts nationally and internationally. You are the ones who have actually done and are doing the heavy lifting. We just have to make certain we do a better job of case making. The complexity of our authorizing environment is reflected in just this capsule of words up on the screen, and for many of you it is much more complex. Community groups are just not one monolithic. University administration always have different points of view and different perspectives. Some of you may have experienced that in your time. And so what we've attempted to do today is actually use the work of professor at the Kennedy School at Harvard, Mark Moore, to talk about the public value triangle. And you'll see in a few slides how this works, that you have an authorizing environment that provides us legitimacy and support. So it's not just the money that comes to us, it's the people who participate, the people who are audience members, the media, and then they provide support for our operating environment, and those are the classes and performances that we do. And often we tend to talk about what we do as examples, basically say, well, we did 25 performances last year, we reached 3,000 people, 20% of them were students, and it's the end. But in fact, what you're doing is you're actually creating transformative experiences. We talked about that in the session yesterday that Wiley Housem and Eric Olmscheid led in the Affinity Group, but we don't actually focus on the transformative experiences. It's my opinion that you've already created the transformative experiences. We need to do a better job of it, as well as actually talk about what happened as a result before, during, and after, and then communicate the impact to the authorizers. And this is where, I'll say this several times today, you've actually done the heavy lifting, but we need to do those red lines of communicating. And in the course of preparing for this work over the last several years, I've had benefit of working with a great group of university-based performing arts presenters. And what I learned through that is the importance of why. And so I'm going to share with you, this is Simon Sinek's work, some of you may have been familiar with it, that the core of what we do has to start with why. Why do we do what we do? We know how we do things, we know how to do, but we don't actually focus as much as we might on the why that we're doing things. And today, so Sinek talks about why is your cause, your purpose, or core belief, why do you exist? And it's not just to present performances, the why we exist is in fact to create exemplary, transformative experiences, and transformative is an important part of this. People come to our spaces. Mike at the Krannert Center has used in the past the phrase, come as you are, leave different. But we don't measure how different people are when they leave. And then the how become the actions taken to deliver our why. It's how we bring your why to life. And again, we tend not to communicate to participants why they should come, what's valuable to me about buying a ticket, about coming to a workshop. These are just some quotes from the facilities, the centers. Being matters is something that is a long time Krannert Center mantra. Shared aesthetic experiences. Mike will be talking about that. Bringing moments of meaning to life. So consider, if you might, this is from Florida, what do you do now to connect and bring moments of meaning to life? And then how do you capture that and share that information with others? And the connecting communities is the Arizona State Cultural Affairs motto. I neglected to put the trademark recognition, connecting communities. Yeah, and so I know I might be sued by Colleen after the panel is over, but and I'm going to now turn it over to Brian, who's going to talk about his why. Want me to advance it?
Okay, thank you, Jerry. I'm going to say, I think that actually I'm not as strong as the other people here in this area of case making, but that's okay. This session is about sharing and about learning and about testing our ideas. And what I'm going to share with you is what I believe is right for Gainesville. May or may not be congruent with your situation, but take from it what you will. I also get to point out here that Amber Bush is here from our staff, and Elizabeth Auer, who I had the pleasure of working with for 20 years at UFPA. So whenever I say I really mean we. These are the folks that have made it happen presently and over the years. So the first why. Why do we do what we do? Why do I do what I do? Because if we don't, no one else will. I firmly believe that as college university presenters. If we don't put it on our stage, no one else is going to. Maybe Colleen and Michael in a MSA of 10 million people, maybe someone else will, but in Gainesville, or I bet Champaign-Urbana, if we don't do it, no one else will. Another reason why I do what I do is a belief that it is my job, our job at UFPA to create ebullient and exciting performing arts environments. And for you Catholics here, let's do some Lectio Divina. Let's parse this into what I think is the important phrase, which is create ebullient and exciting. Create ebullient and exciting performing arts environments. Ebullient means joyful. It means exciting. It doesn't mean I'm going to poke you in the eye. It doesn't mean take your medicine, it's good for you, I need you to take this medicine. No, we want to create performing experiences that bring joy to people's lives, that brings excitement. Another reason we do what we do is to act locally and not nationally. And this is a change for me over time, I have to say, over 20 years. I believe that I belong to APAP, and I learn here at APAP so I can take it back to act locally. Right? I program here at APAP specifically for our local environment. Frankly, I don't care if the field thinks we're doing a good job or not in Florida. I don't care if the field looks and says, hey, look what they're commissioning or not doing. I don't care. I belong to MUPS. We belong to the Major University Presenters Consortium to find things that we can bring to our local audience, that we can do locally to make ourselves more valuable. I don't care about the national. If you're doing it right locally, the national will follow. They'll figure you out. Believe that actions speak louder than words when it comes to case making. The Lakota people have a great saying, it's a truism, I believe this, that reality is spoken into existence. Reality is spoken into existence. And that's true. You can speak your case into existence, but I believe you get 2 years. And you better have the actions to underpin it. You better have the foundation. You see this happen all the time in our industry and related industries where someone comes in and they speak reality into existence with a lot of enthusiasm, and 2 years later, the organization's sucking air. right? Because they didn't have the underpinning, they didn't have the foundation. Actions speak louder than words. Our litmus test for programming and why we do what we do is a quote attributed to Gustav Mahler. And if you came to my office, you'd see this writ large on the wall of my office, that tradition is not the worship of ashes, but the preservation of fire. Right? Everything that we do on the stage has to pass this litmus test. This isn't a value judgment. It's just, I believe that as a institute of higher learning, we have an academic responsibility to the institution. And I believe that putting, say, tribute shows on the stage where the artist dresses like Janis Joplin, sings the songs of Janis Joplin, acts like Janis Joplin, is the worship of ashes. What I want are artists that bring the fire of Joplin, that bring that voice, bring that soul, bring that intensity, but do it on their own terms, that they're not trying to recreate a moment from 55 years ago. Our math professors don't dress like Pascal, and right? But they build on Pascal's work every day. So our tradition is not the worship of ashes, but the preservation of fire is why we do what we do. I strongly believe that no one will remember me in 2 years if I quit today. I believe that if I resign my position today, 2 years from now, the best I could hope for is people would say, oh, what was that guy's name? He made me laugh once in a while. Right? I think that's what you can hope for. So if you're doing this for legacy, forget it. But the decisions that you make today, the case making that you do today, good or bad, will ripple through that organization for 10 or 20 years. If you're doing your job right today, the case you're making, you'll be able to look at that organization 20 years from now and go, yeah, we did it right. We do what we do because it's our job to create participants, not audience members. Young people now, they don't know what audience means. An audience is something you have at the Pope, right? To them, they are participants. So we change our programming to make it more participatory so that young people feel more connected. Otherwise, I think it's a lost cause for the future. The big six, 3 are in our wheelhouse. I know that makes no sense, but I'm going to explain it a little bit. The Gallup people have been surveying college graduates, I think about 10 years after they graduate. And they've been asking them, what is it in your college experience that made you a better human, if you will? What was it that prepared you for life? What made you fulfilled as a college student? And there are 6 items that continuously come up. 3 of them are from the classroom, so they're not so much in our wheelhouse. But the things that are in our wheelhouse for why we do what we do for our case making, extracurricular activities is number 1. The things that I was exposed to in college, the things that made me feel like I belong, the things that opened me up to new ideas, to my creativity, that made me more full, that gave me heft, that gave me mass, those are the things that made me a better adult. Those are the things that prepared me for life. Another one that gets identified that all of us can influence is there was a mentor in my college experience, someone that cared for me, someone that gave a damn about me, somebody that listened to me and encouraged me. And all of us can and should be doing that. And the third thing that we have control over in our wheelhouse is that I had a job on campus that taught me about life, that taught me how to be responsible, that taught me how an organization works, whether it's ticket office, backstage, front of house, finance. We all offer those possibilities, make them as enriching as possible for our students. And the last reason that we do what we do at UFPA is to bring moments of meaning to life. And you get the double entendre there pretty quickly. Our job is to bring moments of meaning to the stage, those things that really count from 3,000 years of the canon, whether it's brand new work or great historical work, traditional, contemporary. It's our job to bring to the stage those things that need to be seen, to bring those moments of meaning to life. But it's the second part is our job to make it animate, to make it crackle, to capture lightning in a bottle. That ephemeral, that temporal moment is going to pass. It's our job to make sure that the audience is in flow so that they can connect with that moment, and we bring moments of meaning to life. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. One of the things you'll realize or have realized is that things are just going to come at you fast and furious today. And the hopefully is that something will stick, something will be a potentially transformative experience for you. And we're going to wrap up at the end is what is you here and what might you do about it. So again, this is, I was talking earlier, with someone, this is not a linear presentation. So I'm going to actually have Colleen speak next. So, and it's important here to realize that Colleen, beside being executive director of ASU Cultural Affairs, she's also a vice president at the university, which actually has a lot to do with her why. So thank you. Colleen?
Great, thank you. Thank you. I want to start out by saying none of us, what we're going to talk about today, we didn't wake up in the morning and go, ta-da. We didn't go to all of our institutions and go, oh, look, and we accomplished this in a week. I have been at Arizona State University since 1992. When I came in, the institution that I inherited was not $2.5 million in debt. My predecessor was up for 28 counts of a felony, and no one in the country wanted the job. No one wanted the job. And all of my friends said, you're insane. Why would you go there? I was at Dartmouth College running the Hopkins Center, and I went to a very large, underfunded public institution. That was in 1992. Today, we are a $30 million organization, Cultural Affairs. We are financially independent of the university, which means we get no state money, no student fees, no federal monies, no monies from the university. So we're financially independent. We went from having a 3,000-seat theater to having a 300-seat theater in another town, a 14,000-seat arena, a 70,000-seat stadium, and we just built a 5,000-seat building. That didn't happen in 1992. In 1992, the president said to me, fire everyone and start over. And I was like, well, I don't think I can do that because some of these people actually know what's going on here. So I say we because we built this. Our mission is connecting communities. Michael Reed is here. He is my senior director of not only programs, but special initiatives. He's waving his hand back there. I came in and I met with all of my team my very first time, and I said, what is our mission? And they said, proud to present it all. I said, what does that mean? And they went, oh my God, why did they hire her? I knew then that the team didn't know what it meant because they weren't engaged in building it. So when you look at your mission, if it is one you have inherited, I would sit down collectively with your staff. I actually brought Jerry in. Jerry is actually on retainer with us. He has been my guru and my advisor for more than 30 years. And I just said, Jerry, can you come out and lead us as a team through who it is we want to be, what it is we will go to the mat for, and then from there, we can build out, but only there. And if you ask any one of my 75 staff, 156 part-timers, we have 156 students who work for us, 600 volunteers, and another 300 people we use seasonally in the stadium. They will all say connecting communities, and they will all know what that means. It means internal to the institution and external. And if you are a public institution, even if you're a private one, as I was at Dartmouth, you have a responsibility to the people who fund those institutions. So you have an internal constituency and an external constituency. We spent our first 7 to 8 years focusing on the external constituency. We are today a public institution of 193,000 students in 4 states and 7 countries. We are currently building 27 institutions in China, powered by ASU. So we have this large global reach, but we didn't start there. So understand that mission is not just words that someone left you, but it's words you're going to live with. And every day, Jerry taught us, every year we reevaluate it. I want to say communication is key, and I'm going to get into some of these other things with the why. My team as a whole meets, the monthly team is the entire staff. Every 2 weeks I meet with my senior directors, of which Michael is one, I have 8. Then they meet with their own teams. I do one-on-ones with my senior directors every other week. And they can say, I don't have anything to talk to you about, or we're on video, or we're somewhere else in the world. And I go, great. Or they can say, I need to talk to you. We have something that Jerry taught us that's a Monday meeting, and it's called the standing meeting. And it's 30 minutes. You don't sit down, you stand, and it is what is on fire. It's 30 minutes. We do it every Monday. Every Monday. And one of my senior people leads that meeting. We have a leadership team meeting with just the leadership every 2 weeks. And for those of you who are the CEO, I am there or I am not there. One of the things that's really important about everything and why we do what we do, it must run without us. Brian is absolutely right. People may not remember us. However, I have to say, when you come into Gammage, there are portraits of every director that came before me and myself. I actually raised money for them. I actually put them up there because we build on those who came before us. We stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, and they should always be recognized. When you come into Gammage, you will know the other 5 directors that were there before me. So I think we should be remembered. And in fact, when we did our larger anniversary book, I asked each of them to write a chapter for the book about what they accomplished. And the one who had passed away, I asked his son to write that chapter. So there's something about legacy and honoring the past, living in the present, and moving ahead. One of the things we do is an impact report. And it's pretty, it has colors, but it also has numbers in it. And it starts out of who we are and why you support us. Who we are and why you support us. We recognize, a little picture of me going, go Devils, but we recognize your vision needs to be in here. We recognize who we reach out to, those constituents, internal and external. We say thank you to those people who give us lots of money. We say thank you to anyone who gives us any money, but this book is designed for bigger gifts. And why this page is important? Because people go, oh, the Molly Blank people gave you money? In Arizona, we don't have the same luxury as, we're a teenage city, we're not a grown-up city, so we don't have all of those big corporations. So a lot of our monies actually come from outside of the state. And you want people to say, oh, the Molly Blank Foundation gave you money? Oh, then maybe we could give you money. Oh, the Shamrock Foods people gave you money? So that's equally important. This work is called cultural participation. It's not called education. It's not called outreach, because if you have outreach, what's in reach? It's called cultural participation because people participate in it. And it's K through 12. We have a series of I am a military brat, so things that we didn't have beforehand, we work with our National Guard, our Air Force, our veterans, all of our military, and we honor them throughout the course of the year. We have a really fun little program which no one would say, why did you give those people that money? And we give the money to them. And it's, how many people know what junior achievement is? How many people have been JAers? Yay! Important in our lives, right? Little kids learning about business from other people and selling stuff. That's what we do today. Well, we have a biz town, and it's a space about this big where there are structures from each of the businesses, and then young kids, K through 12, come and they learn what that business is in those structures. Gammage is the only representation of ASU in that structure. It costs us $35,000 a year. And we do that because we give to the community. So one of the things we have to think about is the why we do, and we in connecting communities, we can't be always asking. We have to also be seen as people who contribute. So I love that little thing in there. One of the other things that is in here is our program called High School Musical Theater Awards. How many of you have programs and come to the Jimmy's in New York? Okay, raise your hands high so people can see there are some folks. High School Musical Theater Awards are, you look at your high school students, you view their musicals for the year, you hire a jury team. And then in our case, we have 29 high schools who come to the theater and do one section of that, and then we choose 2 actors, performers, to come to New York and compete with a whole lot of others. The program costs about $24,000. We actually have donors pay for it. Parents have said to us, and we have a large Broadway series. We're one of the #1 markets in the country, with all due respect, Joseph, to Dallas. And this is the most important thing you do. We're happy that you bring Wicked and Hamilton, and we're happy you're bringing back the new Phantom. But seeing those high school kids on the stage performing and they're on the same stage that Lin-Manuel Miranda was on, that Kristen Chenoweth was on, is the highlight of their lives, and as parents, it's the highlight of our life. I sat with the president of we have 22 sovereign nations, of one of our sovereign nations, and we had our school from the sovereign nation up there, and he turned to me and he said, anytime you want or need anything, let me know. It is so important that we are members of the community. We are universities and colleges, but we have an internal and external audience. I know I have 7 minutes, so here's one of the things I wanted to talk about. We actually assess groups every single time. We do in person at events. We send out, we have 80,000 folks on our internet. We send out notices to them, and this is what we do. We say, and all of this will be on the website, so you'll be able to get it, but we start with our season ticket holders, and we ask 3 things. What do you think about ASU Gammage? What do you feel? And what do you do? So we go from the season ticket holder, who says, I love it, I love the shows, it makes me feel good, and I'll buy my season subscription and put it in, to the donors. What do you think? What do you feel? What do you do? And they feel it's important. I think that this is the way that we reach communities, and we write you a check every year. And I'm just sort of paraphrasing. It's like more deep than that. And then it's single ticket buyers. We do the same thing. What do you think? What do you feel? What do you do? I have a saying that I use when I work with artists and have since the beginning of time. What do you want? What do I want? What do we want together? Those 3 things you can use in any situation, because you must know what the person you're talking to wants, you must know what you want, and then you work on what do you want together. Jerry calls that the sweet spot. The next thing on this page, every university and college has initiatives, and they have directives by which they judge what's important to the universities. You all know that universities are under siege. We are under fire. Our very existence, I don't know if you were in the sustainability event this morning when the SC person said 30% of their budget and 30% of their staffs were cut. And why? Because communities didn't step up and say, you can't do that to them. They're important to us. So for my president, what's important is, does this program engender the support of the communities? Does your program, if someone was to come up tomorrow and say, Paul, your program is going to be taken away, will the community rise up and say, no, it won't be? That is something we need to do for our universities and our colleges through our programs. And it sounds like, oh no, is that just another thing I have to do? No, it's something you need to be conscious of. So in this section, what's really important at our institution also is global. Our communities are global. The world is global. We do a global reach. So is your program reflective of that? Is the work that you do reflective of that? Are your staffs reflective? Are you being innovative? And we do a lot of work in terms of innovation, both in terms of artists, a community we serve, technology, which is advancing, and are we making the world a better place? Inclusion and community. And we use the word inclusion. It's not a bad word. Because in 1886, when Arizona State University became a university, it said it was built for the inclusion of everyone to get an education. 1886. I can go on. I think Jerry's giving me the high sign. But both of these documents will be there. I think one of the things that's really important is, regardless of what came before you, you sculpt your future today. Thank you.
Thank you to Colleen for that. As she mentioned, her reports you mentioned will be available to you all. There's a nascent Institute for Cultural Sustainability that is one of the things that Colleen's team is working on that's not quite public yet, but one of the first things they'll be doing with that institute is actually uploading some of the material from this session and encourage future discussion from that. Now pleased to introduce Mike Ross. Let me get this. Go ahead, Mike.
All right. Great to be with you. Thanks, Jerry, for mentioning the notion of non-linear. Because I am a hopelessly non-linear thinker, and I have 27 note cards, or maybe 30, to buzz through. Fortunately, that was number one. I gotta say this. Some of you may know the Beat poet Lawrence Ferlinghetti. He wrote a poem entitled "Constantly Risking Absurdity," and that's pretty much the way I feel on a daily basis in my role, and even being here right now, constantly risking absurdity. I personally need to be pulled into the future by a vision that is unattainable in our lifetime and possibly never. Universities and colleges tend to like to think about grand challenges. We are particularly interested in doing what we can to address, among other things, the grand challenge of this rising epidemic of loneliness in our society and the all too obviously rampant rise of divisiveness or divisiveness. There is an overabundance of complexity, uncertainty, ambiguity, and suffering. That's loud out there. Background, I love it. Again, nonlinear. I'm going to get through these. I tried to connect the dots. Maybe a few dots will register for you. So, to whom are you making the case? I find it useful to remind myself that university presidents, chancellors, provosts, and deans are still human beings. So, I think it's useful to look for a human connection with them that is preferably or ideally values-based. And I think it's useful to, in a very real and genuine way, to attempt to build relationships with them. And about relationship building, I was once told that when it comes to relationships, the conversation is the relationship. The conversation is the relationship. And when it comes to conversations, every single conversation, whether that's in person or on the phone, a text, an email, every conversation, every single conversation either strengthens or diminishes the relationship. Every conversation either strengthens or diminishes the relationship. When I was told that, something hit me really hard inside, and I reflected on a lot of conversations that I've had in my life, professionally and personally. At Krannert Center at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, we report simultaneously to the provost and to the dean. So oftentimes they are the people to whom we try to make the case. I have found it useful to try to keep it real. Nobody likes to be played. Vainglory doesn't generally go over too well. And I find it useful, again, constantly risking absurdity. I know that some of these things may seem supremely self-evident or obvious. But what is your role in the arts ecosystem of your campus? Or what are the roles? And likewise, what is your role or roles in your community? I like to think of Krannert Center as a potent blending of classroom, laboratory, and public square, reflecting the teaching, research, and public engagement mission of the university. Classroom, laboratory, and public square. Students. We are institutions of higher learning. Students matter. Supremely obvious. Not always so obvious to them, perhaps. At Illinois, our campus leaders talk a lot and are invested a lot in what they call the Illinois student experience. When we think about students, we think about a quadrant model in which we think about undergrads, grads, arts majors, non-arts majors, and that helps us to think through some of our strategies in serving students. We think about the values that associate with creativity, diversity, and shared aesthetic experience. We seek to achieve and build something that is perhaps unachievable, a true culture of welcome, radical hospitality, and grace. All in the effort of making it possible for someone to feel that they belong. Belonging matters. My heart goes out to the students of our campus all the time. Tools, case-making tools. Whatever your version might be of an annual report at Krannert Center, we are required to submit an annual report to the provost's office every year, which leads to a meeting with the provost that covers the ground of budgets, etc. But the annual report, it's not just a task, it's not just a necessary task. It's a potent tool in the case-making process for us. I am supremely allergic to strategic planning. Nonetheless, our campus likes strategic plans. And so with the help of Jerry Yoshitomi and fabulous staff and many colleagues, over the last couple of years, we developed not a strategic plan, but a strategic framework We call it Envisioning Our Future, a Strategic Framework. Let others make your case, formally and informally. I have been moved to tears by students testifying in front of the campus student advisory committee in support of the Krannert Center student fee. I have been moved to tears by faculty who have declared the value of a course that we developed to introduce undergrads to the values of creativity, diversity, and shared experience. And I have been moved to tears by the community leaders who came together and asked Krannert Center to partner with Illinois Public Radio to establish the first public radio station dedicated to Black culture and Black music in the country. A little over 2 years ago, FM 101.1, Illinois Soul is the name. And we've celebrated through our programming and in other ways the first and second anniversary of that endeavor. And I'm very pleased to say that the traction is real, and we look forward to celebrating the third in this coming Black History Month, which is, for those of you who may not know, will be the 100th anniversary of Black History Month. I encourage you to declare your values, even if you don't always live up to them. Aspects of internationalism, the K through 12 sector, the arts and well-being intersection, and also increasing benefits that stem from the potential and deeper intersections of arts and technology are also very important for us to consider in our case making. Classicisms and experimentalisms are not opposites in my mind. A cautionary note, I believe that I can't imagine living without passion and without zeal, but at the same time, I have witnessed the crossing over of a threshold when passion and zealousness can become a form of pathological fundamentalism. Soulfulness matters, and I love you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We really designed this session to embrace the diversity of approaches and ways of looking and thinking about this, with the idea that there will be some things, some ideas. You know, and I think each of our speakers actually, with the points they've made, each of them could be chapters in a book or acts within a play, right? So I ask people to let these things wash over you as you would going to a performance that's not didactic, that's not linear, but actually hopefully takes us to a journey of absurdity. We should have renamed this panel, trying to do the absurd, right? So I'm going to very quickly go through some thoughts here about what we might do in terms of specific case making. These are things that have actually already been touched on by our panelists. gather and collect information, evidence of impacts and transformative experiences in our lives. As Colleen and others have done, elicit responses from participants, and then capture what's happening from social media and publish that. The evidence will encourage more ticket buyers and more support from authorizers. Also gather benefits from previous participants. Some of you have participants who've been coming for 10, 15, 20 years. Ask them what their fondest memories have been, as Mike talked about. It will bring tears to your eyes. Bringing moments of meaning to life is what this exercise might be called. And also this idea of creating the future by building on the past. I call it activating the asset of the memories. Again, much of what we're talking about you've already done. We just have not captured and communicated that information to other people. This is a slide that was reflective of a survey that was done with Krannert Center audiences back several years ago, and it's a bit hard to see, but you'll see that almost 90% said that the Krannert Center provided fun or joy in their lives, right? And I imagine that would be similar to what you would, your audience would say. The next is inspired, and it's inspired by others' creative expression. Just think what responses you might get if you actually ask these questions of people in your audience. The next thing the Krannert Center did in the recent strategic visioning Mike was talking about is they asked about who was involved. And so this is an array that came back from the 400 or so people who responded. These were the departments that are represented both by undergraduate, graduates, faculty, and alumni. And this demonstrates in one quick visual the range of impact that the Krannert Center has on the campus. So if you think now about this benefits environment, this red circle, in fact, what you've done is you've actually done a lot, but things that we actually haven't measured. We haven't asked people about creative engagement, about student learning. And this becomes also a way, as you think about programming and activities for the future, to think about how you might actually assess what you put on your stage or what you bring to your community. I noticed that one of the sponsors for the conference is Tycho Project, based in Los Angeles, a group that I know well. And one of the things about Tycho Project is that they reflect very genuinely an American brand of Japanese taiko. Now, some might suggest it's not as authentic as other groups, but I would say, in fact, it represents something that's homegrown that would be really inspiring, particularly to our Asian American students. And I think the idea then of why we bring a group to our stages, why we bring them to is very important here. And then there's a question here of how do we communicate with authorizers? One of the questions that we actually have raised is with folks is, will people there look like me? What will the experience be? And I want to thank my colleagues, Ken Coulter, who is from the Oakville Center, did this slide that basically said, is this a slide that would encourage parents to bring their children, right? I mean, this is a slide I will show to my 4-year-old grandson who doesn't want to go to a performance with grandpa, right? So this is what it is. People will will people there look like me, or people like me be there? I think the idea of actually photographs of the audiences, the diverse nature of your audiences, is something that should be front and center of all of our material. Let's come as you are, leave different. And then in terms of who, to our colleagues in Minnesota, the Northrop several years ago in, I think, anyway, had online programs. And again, in one graphic, they quickly demonstrated the reach of their Zoom performances, their online performances to schools throughout Minnesota. And I see a couple of Wisconsinites sort of slip into the group here. So the idea might be, if you think about the top row is those impacts that I talked about earlier, and then the left side are looking at authorizers, and this is just a very quick example of something that you might do on your own, and to think about which examples or which impacts would be of important to which authorizers, whether it be for case making to buy a ticket, case making to come to a performance, case making to support your program overall, and how would we communicate and who would we communicate with. And so there are a couple of things I put in X here in terms of the social interaction. So do we communicate to students, for example, that there will be other students in the room, that there won't be people who look like me sitting next to them? Maybe do we seat students in a student section, for example? Is there a student lounge as they have at UT Austin to encourage opportunities? Someone yesterday in the College and University Affinity Group mentioned that we do a lounge for donors. Well, why don't we do a lounge for students? Right? What is our purpose? What is our why of why we do things, right? Brian has encouraged me or us to think about some books that there might be available to you all. He's suggesting Brian, you want to mention the two that you raised?
Sure. The first book I have, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, is now 20 years old, this book. I see Paul Brownhand here, who used to work with me 20 years ago when this book came out, and this book changed my life. Say in the top 10 things, the top 10 experiences, including these mentors that have changed my career, I would put this book in that top 10, maybe top 5. Really important book. It's only this thick, man. I'm the world's slowest reader. I finished it in 3 hours. You'll finish it before cruising altitude, but it teaches you how to lead, teaches you how to fight for what you believe in. I strongly recommend 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And then I also really like books that are tangentially related, not prescriptive books that say do this, but books that rather challenge you, that you have to think about, how do I apply this to my work? And a book that has summarily kicked my ass this year is The Dawn of Everything, A New History of Humanity. This book is dense and intense, but every single page challenges my belief system. So if you like being challenged and finding new information you can apply to your case making and to your work, I strongly suggest Graeber and Wengrow's book.
Thank you. I mentioned earlier Start With Why, or the Simon Sinek's work. This is actually a book that I was not familiar with until it was gifted to me by my older son, David Yoshitomi, who was in a grad school program, and said, hey, this might be of value to you. And as you see, it really has changed my way of thinking. I should also recognize Joseph here, Joseph Yoshitomi, who's David's younger brother, who's with Dallas Broadway. Is it Broadway Dallas? Sorry, I get to trade it.
I think we have a bigger subscription base than Colleen. She laughed, so she can't defend herself.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's another topic. We talked about transformative experiences, Pine and Gilmore's work again. And again, I suggest that those of you in the room, our directors aren't going to read books, they might read chapters. And you may want to think, let's do a book group and think about what it is. What we've been talking about here, I think these folks have really learned sort of through trial and error with dealing with the absurd and the difficult and the risky. And I know it's a difficult thing for our organizations to turn on a dime or to change, but I think these are the kinds of ways of thinking that we need to implement. And then I talked earlier about the public value triangle. This is the first version. There have been a lot of rewrites, but this is the the first one that I encountered, roughly 20 years ago that created the public value triangle. And again, I encourage you to go back to take articles and have little book clubs. I think that, as Brian suggested, how do we inject new ways of thinking into our field? Particularly those of you who are new to this field of college and university presenting. I was working with a group a few months ago, and a brand new person on the staff asked the question at a staff meeting, why do we do it that way? And the director said, well, we've been doing that way for 15 years. We're going to continue doing it that way. Right? I know none of that impacts on any of your organizations. But I think it's important that we actually ask ourselves the question to really go back to the idea of the importance, and I say this, the importance of what it's really important to all of us, I think, as a field and as a country, that you all are successful in what you do. And it has to be the new ideas, the new ways of thinking, the new experiments. We're not, as Mike and Brian said, we're not always going to get it right, but we need to be trying different ways of doing things. So as Brian said, he's going to ask you the question. You want to come up and?
So we're going to do some Q&A now. But first, Jerry's really a modest guy. You may not know this, but for 25 years, I think I can fairly say no one knows more about college and university presenting than Jerry Yoshitomi. He's overseen the major university presenters consortium for that 25 years, plus his extensive histories. So he's seen them come and he's seen them go. If your organization needs any kind of guidance in this area, that's your guy. Now, we're going to do a Q&A here, and I'd like to preface a little bit. We're going to do it maybe a little different than you're used to. At each staff meeting at UFPA, we finish it with something called No BS with Brian. And you get to ask any question, and I have to answer it candidly. And in this case, Jerry and Mike have agreed to these ground rules too. So the point here is that you should ask questions that the ones that you had earlier, if we didn't cover them, you should ask them. We promise to give you candid answers, but this is a place to share and grow. We promise to be vulnerable and answer honestly, and please ask your questions the same way. The only ground rule is we're not going to hurt anyone, so don't ask like who's the worst artist you ever worked with. We're not going to do anything like that. This is really an opportunity to ask those things you'd like a candid response to. So let's jump in. Any questions for the group? And Jerry, do you have a mic? Oh, Jerry has a microphone coming around.
Yes.
I see a question. Why don't you just say and I'll repeat it if need be.
I'm curious.
Introduce yourself first.
Oh, sorry. I'm Lowell Henderson. I'm the Director of Arts Programming at SUNY Oswego. I find myself in a position where we have new leadership at our university who's not supportive of the arts. And the barriers to reach the people that I need to be advocating
Yeah, I'll be your microphone.
directly to and the channels that I how to get what needs to be in front of these people to make our case for our continued existence.
Great. Presenting will experience. Mike or Jerry, any thoughts on this?
Is this on? Okay. What is your reporting structure?
I report to a dean.
And the dean reports to the provost. And the president is the one that is not exhibiting enthusiasm for the arts? What is your relationship with the dean? Could you characterize it?
It's it's a positive relationship. I don't find her, though, to be a very strong leader, so I don't get the sense that what I am trying to advocate for is making it further up.
So I have experienced that too. And as I said, I have the benefit of having a dual report structure built directly to the provost and the dean. I will also say that the amount of time, the airtime that I get with the provost each semester is pretty limited. So I have found it useful in situations like that to identify someone else in the key, in the provost suite, and the dean suite if possible, who does understand and appreciate the value that you're bringing to the campus. Is there someone like that in the mix?
Unfortunately, our provost was a huge supporter of the arts and was just unexpectedly fired like 4 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be a lot of upheaval. So I think that's a place for me to look in the future, hopefully.
Oh man, Brian, do you want to add?
Yes, and Colleen had another engagement, but she's fond of us saying, have somebody carry your water. And I think, sorry?
No, I said that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you are not able to do what you
Yeah.
need to do, the object is you're working on the benefit of the student. So let the student do your voice. And then what happens is the dean is now obligated to pay attention because the dean's job is to make sure that the lifestyle and culture of the students is accurate. And then once the provost and everybody else sees that there's a problem with that, then all of a sudden they'll come to you.
Yeah.
Because you was the first one that identified it. The caveat to that is you're not the one, even though you are the one. Because if you are identified as the one that's advocating or making them do it, then you become the problem. So it's connecting with the students on, lack of better words, a covert strategy, so that what happens is it winds up circulating back to you.
Thank you, and agree with those things. Other questions? Oh, sorry, Jerry.
I'm going to say that I think one of the easiest things to do, I think, in any reporting situation where there be someone who's brand new to the job or been there for a long time, is to actually ask the higher ups, what do you expect to be the results? What impacts do you expect that we make on the campus? Colleen just mentioned the objectives, I think the 6 or 8 objectives that Arizona State has, and she uses that to respond directly to the president for these 8 things. This is what we do. But for a new person particularly, you can actually say to them, what do you expect from us? And it actually concerns me to actually hear about provost, well, it concerns me that your provost was fired, but also concerns me to hear that the provost was supportive of the arts. What I would rather hear is a provost who was supportive of the experiences that the arts create for students and others. All right, so I think our information is often faulty in what we send back. We don't actually talk about, and as you look for the other people to carry the water, part of that is actually doing the surveying where you say, how has the Krannert Center impacted you over the last 15 years? What has been the impact? And from that, you'll actually see people who's active, who's in the College of Engineering or other people who are actually able to speak out, from folks you don't expect. So I think part of this is also having dialogue with your current participants and encouraging more engagement from participants. Again, I think you've done the heavy lifting. The idea is to collect the evidence. Someone else?
Question over here? Yes.
So I would like to talk about that as well. I don't know what size your university is, but I work at a university in the middle of Pennsylvania, a very rural area. Right now we have currently about 7,000 students. So the venue I present out of also does everything else. We do orientations and all kinds of other things. So the provost and people like the president are often in my building for those things. So sometimes, when I'm not necessarily always getting the time that I would need or want, I tend to put myself in places where they may be if I have certain questions or things that I want answered. I don't know if you have the same kind of opportunity or you operate out of venues that they also are in sometimes, but that's something that on occasion I have found to be successful, especially if you're working with a dean who you like to work with but isn't necessarily, you know, sending that message up in the way that you want it. And then, I mean, also then they're in your area and you can, oh, this is such a beautiful building and these are all the things we do here, because sometimes they're just not paying attention. And that's part of it too, I think. But that's all I have to add to that.
That was a wonderful addition. Thank you.
What institution are you with? I'm sorry.
Formerly Bloomsburg University, now Commonwealth University Bloomsburg campus, combined with Mansfield and Lock Haven, so part of the PASHE system.
Great, thank you.
Great. Other questions, please?
Yeah, my name is Irene. I'm from St. Catherine University in St. Paul, and I just kind of want to build on this and introduce something a little bit new. So agree with everything that's been said, and I think in my institution, I've been there for about 3.5 years, we have had growth in every measure and impact reports that we can share, growth financially 10 to 20% a year, year over year, so there's a good position to stand on. But getting the attention and ambassadorship of the senior leadership can be challenging because they're pulled in so many directions. And I guess I'm just looking for advice on how to push what feels like bureaucratic inertia. I don't know how else to say it. I think that I'm in a place where I've worked in small standalone arts organizations before coming where I am, so I'm not used to navigating this infrastructure, and I really do want to drive to results. I think that we all do, but the way I framed it with my CFO is, you know, we've had this success and here's the impact report, here's what's going on, and we can put a lock on the door and shut it down, or we're at the point now where we do need the ambassadorship sometimes of the board and the leadership in order to make the venue move to its next level of being. And actually, by just patting it on the head and walking away, that's actually where the financial vulnerability is. And that's got an ongoing conversation. I don't know if that's the right way to frame it, but it's the way that I have framed it in my own head, and I would just love thoughts.
I'm sorry, what institution is it again?
St. Catherine University in St. Paul, Minnesota.
It's Catholic?
St.
Yeah.
Kate's.
St. Kate's, very
Yeah.
progressive, yes, Catholic.
Catholic, okay. The person to talk to is this guy who was at St. John's, St. Ben's for a few years. And so he might have some perspective. One of the things that Brian did when he was at these two Catholic colleges, he actually had something that he called performance divina. Those of you in the room may have heard of the thing that he talked about earlier called lectio divina, where in Catholic studies you actually read something and then you reflect on what's spirituality, what divine messages or whatever information, you can describe it better. But I think the idea of having a performance divina sense for students or others after a performance, you know, what is the, you know, it could be a wide range of things. It could be a rock concert to classical music, but what is this impact on you know, spiritually? It's my opinion that if we try to do a hand-to-hand combat on dollars and cents, we're going to lose.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's not what we're about. We're about changing people's lives. And it's really important for us to get the information, the evidence that we're changing people's lives. And then in the end of the day, if they decide they don't want to have change people's lives, then we do go home. But to actually do it as a numbers game, as a money, the money is the last thing we should be talking about, because it's not going to be big. You know, someone would say, "Well, Jerry, we don't have a student lounge. We prioritize donors because they give us money." Well, I think some of those donors would prefer inviting students into their lounge because they like to see what the impact would be on students. You want to talk about any more about Lectio Divina?
I won't say any more about Lexio, but I think one of the experiences I had, and Mike mentioned it earlier, especially at a private or smaller college, is remembering that our authorizers are people. So easy to make them the dean or the provost or whatever, but man, they're motivated by things people are motivated by, and in a smaller institution, they carry more weight than maybe in 55,000 student kind of thing like University of Florida now. So my experience was really treating people for their needs. But why don't we talk offline about this? It's a great question. Thank you. Yes.
Hello, my name is John Thomas. I'm at Goucher College in Baltimore, Maryland. And I'm fortunate, I think, in that I have a president who is very interested and involved in the arts and has done some presenting work on his own. One of my challenges is when his taste, he dictates something that he wants me to pursue, where I have a pretty strong sense from my experience that it won't work in our market, where he's not from there. And there's some challenges. And so what I would ask for advice is when you have that relationship with somebody, but they're the president, and you need to tell them no. And I've gotten a little better at it, but I'd appreciate the wealth of your experience.
I would go ahead and present the show.
There you go. I totally agree.
Right?
Totally agree.
Yeah, because if you end up fighting, it's going to be, well, gee, John Doe would have been he would have sold out, or she would have sold out, right? And so
and you give a chance to the president or the other leadership to walk in your shoes and see what it is to try to sell a show and to mount it, and the tech rider, and all of those things could be a hell of a learning ride.
Yeah, I also want to talk about the issue of taste and what's appropriate. I think that I think part of this conversation going forward is actually rethinking the way in which we schedule and program things. Do we do, one of the things that Brian didn't talk about is one of his most popular series is a series, Upstage, I think it's called, where they do it on the stage. They're 45-minute concerts. You can come and get heavy hors d'oeuvres and drinks during the show, or if the 7 o'clock show, and then there's a 9 o'clock show that's just beverages. But it actually is reflective of people's time. So I think part of this is also I know I'm not answering your question, but really experimenting into the format of what we do. People just don't have the time and the location. I was talking to someone the other day who was saying to me that a lot of classical music is best done in churches, because it was written to be performed in churches. So think about doing it in other places. So part of it may be actually looking at what is the best place for this artist to be. And I think I might even deign to think, let's call it the President's Series.
Oh.
You like that one?
Oh.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And the banner should be
President's Choice, just like Sam's Club, right?
Yeah.
Could I ask?
Go ahead, Mike.
Could I ask you again? Would you mind just sharing a little bit more specificity about the artistry piece of what you were describing?
So we have an annual endowed performance, and it sort of goes back and forth between classical performers and jazz performers, and it's been running since 1959. So it's traditionally been pretty successful. The classical artists that have done well there have sort of names that are good for any time zone, and I was asked to present somebody that I 100% believe in their artistry, and they were fabulous performers. With our particular audience base, I was pretty confident that it was going to be the answer was going to be who are they, even with a lot of marketing put behind it, and that's I have a 1,000-seat hall. I sold 26 tickets. And so I saw that coming, and I sort of tried to gently say, this might happen. And then the question was, why didn't we market this better? So now I'm in a situation where if I see that coming, I want to push back a little harder than I did that time. Yeah. But again, it's a good relationship, and this wasn't. It didn't turn out to be a dark, nasty thing that happened. We actually moved it into our smaller venue and had a nice evening, and it was a great performance for the people who did come. And I papered the room with some extra folks that we gave free tickets to. But the stated goal of the evening didn't happen.
Thank you. And that was a good response to what you did with that situation, at least in my view. So that contributed in some ways, kind of like going back to every conversation either strengthens or diminishes the relationship. It feels like what you were able to make out of that was a positive, and hopefully that will help you next time around. But I got to tell you, that does fall into the be careful what you wish for category. You've got a president who really is very interested, and yeah, this happens a lot with deans, I think, in our field, and anyway, department heads. So.
Thank you. We have time for just 2 more questions. Anyone else? Yes, please.
Hey, I'm Michael. I'm actually from an artist organization called Science Specific Dances. And my question for you guys or the people in the room is, when you are a truly interdisciplinary performance company and you get engaged with the university, our team is made up of, a choreographer, an architect, composers, musicians, dancers, video artists, graphic artists. We have a robust team of collaborators depending on what project we're doing. What can we do as an organization to make sure that everything goes smoothly with the university as if, as when we've been an artist in residence? And what could we do to kind of facilitate or give ideas and move the process forward in a healthy way where we feel like the university is getting everything that they actually can get out of us, because we do want to be a part of the educational system when we're in residence, and we've had situations where you think these things are going to happen, and then this class falls through, or that master class, or that lecture, and you're like, oh, well, this actually wasn't maybe what it was supposed to be anyway. So, I don't know, just kind of how to troubleshoot as an arts organization when you're working with a university to make sure that, everything gets done that's supposed to.
Right.
A quick, thank you. I think that's a very, 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 very important question to be thrown into the space here. If Colleen was here right now, I'm certain that she would say that at ASU, with every single artist that they engage, they plan residency work. And so at certain of our institutions, there will be a more well-practiced history of engaging with artists such as yourselves who have that passion, interest, and zeal to connect in as many ways as possible. But I also encourage you to keep in mind that at almost any of the presenting organizations that we're talking about here, or that are represented in the room, there is not infinite capacity to staff capacity and other capacity to make all those kinds of connections and things work for every artist residence that happens. It's up to it's a two-way street, but I think knowing the capacity of the presenter and that institution's staff, et cetera, and their appetite for what you're talking about before you go, get too far along into the planning process can help a lot.
I would also suggest actually looking at, before you arrive, to actually looking at the impact that you want to have and figure out which events are most important to that impact, and make certain that the presenter is able to gather the data on who, so a lot of the events that would be outside, there's no ticket selling, so do we scan student cards to get a sense of who was, those kinds of things. And at the end of the day, I think, this is all about risk. The company, you're talking about people who are doing this for the first time. It'll be the first time your company's on site. And so the idea is to really look at, did we make the impact we hoped we had to cancel this thing, we had to cancel that, but what was our impact? And let's measure that at the end of the day. And yes, so-and-so professor's upset because we didn't get there for the master class, but I think it's really looking at impact.
My no BS answer to that is your relationships with the presenter, and you're at the mercy of the presenter and what relationships they have on campus. You really don't have a lot to say about it. Your product may be excellent for outreach, but if the presenter hasn't built those relationships or doesn't have the capacity, as Mike said, sorry, it's not going to really take off like it should, despite how great it is. I think we're up against, I know I said we had time, but it's 4 o'clock now. We want to honor your time, but mostly we want to honor each of you for spending an hour and a half bettering your knowledge of the field. Hopefully we shared some information with you. We're going to be up here afterwards if you'd like to come up and talk, and we look forward to getting to know each of you personally.
Yeah,
thank you.
Also, I would just say that somewhere on the ASU Cultural Affairs site, there'll be information about the panel, and there should be a QR code there for you to, if you want to log in and get more information and more follow-up. So please go to ASU Cultural Affairs. And thank you all for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.